Ladies, there's something powerful about a woman who knows who she is. She walks in a room and doesn't have to say a word, yet the atmosphere shifts. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. It's not pride, it's purpose. A woman of high standards doesn't have to announce it. It's evident in how she carries herself, how she responds to pressure, and how she refuses to shrink herself to make others feel comfortable. She's not waiting to be chosen. She already chose herself. She already decided she's enough. Not because the world clapped for her, but because she knows who God made her to be. One of the clearest signs of a woman of high standards is that she doesn't settle for less than she deserves. She's not going to stay in places where her value is questioned. She's not going to entertain half-hearted love, inconsistent friends, or opportunities that require her to betray her integrity. She knows that settling isn't humble. It's harmful. She understands that saying yes to less will cost her the very future she prayed for. So when others rush into relationships for the sake of not being alone, she waits. When others chase validation, she stands still and lets God validate her. She knows that delay doesn't mean denial. She trusts that what's meant for her won't require her to compromise who she is just to keep it. But it's not just what she accepts, it's what she holds herself to. She doesn't need someone to call her out because she calls herself higher first. She's not afraid to say, that was me. I was wrong. That kind of accountability isn't weakness. It's wisdom. A woman of high standards knows that growth doesn't happen where excuses live. She confronts her reflection before she confronts others. She doesn't blame the world for her pain. She learns from it. She's not trying to be perfect, but she's committed to becoming better. She's disciplined when no one's watching. She shows up with integrity, not because she's being watched, but because she knows excellence is a habit, not a performance. She also understands the power of her peace. While others fight for attention, she guards her spirit. She's not moved by trends, applause, or approval. She's not chasing noise. She's protecting her stillness. Some might call her quiet, mysterious, or even too selective, but she's just being intentional. She's not loud because she doesn't need to be. She knows real power whispers. She doesn't need to be seen every second to know she's significant. Her peace is more precious than being popular. She knows drama drains destiny, so she avoids it. She doesn't respond to everything thrown at her because she understands that not everything deserves her energy. She's learned that maturity often looks like silence. A woman of high standards doesn't fight for spaces that don't fit her. She walks away, not because she's weak, but because she's wise enough to recognize what no longer serves her growth. She knows when a season is over. She doesn't cling to what's familiar if it's no longer fruitful. She understands that staying too long in a wrong place can cost her the right future. She's not bitter. She's discerning. She's not petty. She's protective. When something threatens her peace, her progress, or her purpose, she lets it go. She doesn't make excuses for why she stayed. She thanks God for the clarity and moves on, because she knows what's coming is greater than what's behind her. And more than anything, she knows her worth. She doesn't need to beg to be chosen, loved, or noticed. She understands that anything that's real won't require her to lose herself just to keep it. She doesn't have to prove her value. She embodies it. She's not desperate to fit in because she was born to stand out. She doesn't compete where she doesn't compare. When doors close, she doesn't panic. She praises because she knows her value doesn't change with someone's opinion. Whether she's applauded or overlooked, promoted or passed by, she stays grounded. Why? Because she knows favor isn't random. It's reserved. It's not that she's better than others. She's just not willing to forget who she is just to be accepted by people who don't recognize her worth. There's a confidence that comes when you understand you were created for more. There's a power that rises when you stop needing to be validated and start walking like you're already valuable. That's what women of high standards carry. Not ego, not entitlement. just divine identity. They don't rush the process. They don't force the connection. They don't lower the bar to be more relatable. They just walk in quiet confidence, knowing that what's for them can't be manipulated or missed. So to every woman who's ever been called too much for being bold, too distant for being wise, or too picky for protecting her heart, don't you dare lower your standard to match their comfort. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to build something different. And the very things they don't understand about you are the things God will use to set you apart. Keep walking in excellence. Keep standing in truth. Keep believing that the right people, the right doors, and the right timing are all aligning for your good. Because when you walk in purpose, everything that was delayed will be delivered. Not because you begged for it, but because you believed you were worth it. She doesn't settle for less than she deserves. That alone is a statement that separates an average life from an abundant one. It's not about being difficult, demanding, or proud. It's about being deeply rooted in your identity. A woman who refuses to settle knows that her value was determined before the opinions of people ever entered the equation. She understands that settling is not an act of humility, but an act of forgetfulness. Forgetting who she is, forgetting what she carries, and forgetting what God already spoke over her life. She doesn't let temporary emotions rewrite eternal truths. She's been through enough to know the cost of compromise. She's seen what happens when you ignore red flags and call them potential. She's felt the weight of giving too much to people who gave the bare minimum. She's lived through the pain of trying to fix what God never told her to build in the first place. That's why now she's careful with her yes. She doesn't rush into opportunities just because they look good. She doesn't stay in places where her spirit is restless. She doesn't entertain relationships where her worth is questioned. She's not bitter, she's better. She's not guarded because she's cold. She's guarded because she's grown. A woman who won't settle knows the difference between being tested and being tolerated. She's not interested in being around people who merely put up with her presence. She's not begging for the bare minimum and calling it love. She's not clinging to circles that make her shrink. When you know who you are, you stop looking people to complete you and start looking for people who can walk beside you in agreement. That's the difference. When you've been through a season of growth, you recognize that peace is better than potential, that consistency is better than chemistry, and that discernment is better than attention. She's not out here comparing herself to everyone else's timeline either. She doesn't panic just because others seem to be getting ahead. She understands that what's meant for her isn't going to pass her by. She's not desperate for a position, a relationship, or a spotlight. She's not driven by fear of missing out. She's moved by faith. She's anchored in truth. That's why she can say no to what looks good, because she's waiting on what is God. That's why she can close a door and not look back, because she trusts that better is coming. Not because she's lucky, but because she's aligned. And make no mistake, walking with standards doesn't mean she hasn't been tempted to settle. She's human. She's had moments of loneliness, seasons of waiting, and times where it seemed like nothing was moving. But even in the silence, even in the delay, she held her ground. She reminded herself, I am still worth it, even if they didn't see it, even if they walked away, even if it didn't work out. She doesn't see rejection as a reflection of her worth. She sees it as God's protection. That's how a woman of high standards thinks. She doesn't cry over closed doors. She celebrates them because she knows closed doors save wasted years. She's learned that not all attention is admiration, not all praise is pure, and not all opportunities are blessings. That's why she's selective. That's why she pauses. That's why she prays. Because she knows that everything that glitters isn't gold, and everything that looks right isn't aligned with her destiny. She's not just looking at surface level things anymore. She's listening for peace. She's watching for fruit. She's tuned in to the whisper of God more than the noise of the crowd. That's what keeps her from settling. That's what keeps her grounded. And if she has to walk alone for a season, she's okay with that. She's not afraid of solitude. She knows that sometimes God hides you to heal you. He separates you to strengthen you. He pulls you back to prepare you. And if she has to be misunderstood in the process, so be it. If she's labeled too picky, too patient, too quiet, so be it. She'd rather wait in peace than live in pieces. She'd rather walk alone with God than walk with people who don't value her presence. Her standard is not based on arrogance. It's based on alignment. She's not looking for perfect people. She's looking for purpose-filled connections. She's not chasing fantasy. She's building a future. And if it costs her some relationships, some opinions, some opportunities, she's still good. Because at the end of the day, she didn't come this far to lower the bar. She's been through too much to turn around now. She's grown too much to go back to what broke her. She's learned too much to ignore what doesn't feel right. This kind of standard comes from a deep place. It comes from knowing what it took to get here. It comes from healing what others never apologized for. It comes from choosing growth over comfort time and time again. She doesn't apologize for her standard because she knows it's not just protecting her, it's preparing her. Preparing her for a future that matches her identity. Preparing her for love that reflects her value. Preparing her for opportunities that recognize her anointing. She's not asking for more than she deserves. She's just refusing to settle for less. She holds herself accountable before others have to. That's a sign of maturity, of inner strength, of a woman who is not just chasing elevation, but is grounded in responsibility. She's not waiting for someone else to tell her what she already knows deep down. She looks at herself with honesty. She examines her actions, her motives, her habits, not through shame, but through a deep desire to grow. She's not pointing fingers, not blaming her past, not living in denial. She's saying, if I want to go higher, I have to go deeper. If I want more, I have to become more. That's what sets her apart. It takes courage to correct yourself. It's easy to highlight someone else's faults. It's easy to call out the flaws in other people. But it takes strength to pause and ask, where could I have done better? That's the mark of a woman who's becoming. She's not chasing perfection, but she is pursuing excellence. She's not afraid to admit when she's wrong because she doesn't tie her identity to her mistakes. She knows failure doesn't define her. How she responds to it does. She sees mistakes as mirrors, not walls. Lessons, not labels. Every misstep becomes a stepping stone when you're humble enough to learn from it. This kind of accountability is rare because it's rooted in truth. And truth requires vulnerability. It requires taking the mask off. It requires letting go of the image you want to protect and looking at the reality you want to change. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's power. A woman who holds herself accountable doesn't need to be chased down to do the right thing. She doesn't need someone to call her out before she starts making changes. She checks herself in silence. She prays, God, search me. Show me where I'm off. Correct me before I get comfortable in what's not aligned. That prayer alone keeps her on the path of growth. People might not understand why she walks away from things that others celebrate. They might not see why she distances herself when no one else sees a problem, but she sees it. She feels it. Something inside of her tells her, this is not who you are anymore. And she listens. She listens to that nudge, that whisper from God, that internal conviction that says, there's more for you, but you can't carry this into it. That's accountability. It's not about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest with yourself. And honesty is the soil where transformation grows. She doesn't need to be exposed because she lives exposed before God. She doesn't need to be humbled by life because she humbles herself daily. She admits when she missed the mark, not because she wants approval, but because she desires alignment. She says sorry, not as a performance, but as a principle. She forgives because she understands that holding on to offense is too expensive. She chooses healing over hiding. She chooses growth over ego. She chooses obedience over comfort. And let's be honest, there were times when she didn't always get it right. Times when pride crept in. Times when excuses felt easier. Times when she knew she was off but didn't want to face it. But even then, grace met her. Conviction nudged her back. And little by little, she began to choose truth over image, substance over appearance, integrity over impression. And with every choice, she became stronger, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. And being real is what breaks generational patterns. Being real is what makes healing possible. She's not waiting on a crowd to cheer her into change. She's not depending on a crisis to make her shift. She self-corrects. She self-checks. She's the kind of woman who looks in the mirror and says, "It starts with me." If peace is missing, she checks her heart. If confusion is rising, she seeks clarity. If doors keep closing, she doesn't just blame others. She asks God to examine her attitude, her decisions, her posture. That kind of honesty creates freedom. That kind of accountability brings favor. Because God can bless the real you, not the version you pretend to be. People admire her strength, but they don't always see what it cost her to get it. They don't know how many nights she wrestled with conviction, how many decisions she made in silence that changed the course of her life, how many apologies she offered when her pride wanted to stay quiet, how many boundaries she set, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. She chose the hard road. She chose the narrow path. She chose to grow even when it meant letting go. She's not trying to impress people. She's trying to honor the call. She knows that to carry what's next, she has to become someone different. And becoming isn't about looking the part. It's about living the part. And living it starts with responsibility. She refuses to be the victim of her own decisions. She refuses to stay stuck in cycles that she has the power to break. She's not controlled by her emotions. She's led by her convictions. She doesn't chase validation. She chases transformation. This kind of woman is rare because she's not ruled by what's easy. She's ruled by what's right. She doesn't need an audience to change. She doesn't need applause to keep going. She just needs a mirror and the courage to face it. Because she knows her greatest breakthroughs won't come from pointing at others. They'll come from looking within. And the more she takes responsibility, the more heaven trusts her with influence, with favor, with authority. Because when you can govern yourself, God can trust you to lead others. When you can be faithful in secret, He will elevate you in the open. That's the power of accountability. That's the strength of a woman who checks herself before the world has to. She protects her peace at all costs. That's not just a nice quote she read online. It's a lifestyle she lives out daily because she knows peace is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's not optional. It's foundational. When you've been through enough storms, you stop leaving the front door open to chaos. You stop apologizing for creating space between yourself and anything or anyone that tries to disrupt your inner calm. A woman of high standards understands that peace is her power, and she will guard it like a treasure because she's worked too hard, cried too long, and grown too deep to let it be disturbed by nonsense. There was a time when she let everyone have access to her, when she answered every call, responded to every drama, got involved in every issue. But now she's selective, not because she's cold, but because she's healed. Not because she's arrogant, but because she's aware. She realized some people don't come to pour into your life. They come to drain it. Some conversations don't uplift, they unravel. Some atmospheres don't bring clarity, they bring confusion. And she's made up her minding if it costs her peace, it's too expensive. She knows the enemy doesn't always attack with destruction. Sometimes he distracts. He'll send noise just to keep her from hearing God. He'll send offense just to get her out of alignment. He'll use people, patterns, and pressure to pull her back into a version of herself that she's already outgrown. But she's wiser now. She knows the tactic. She knows what's at stake. That's why she's careful with what she allows into her heart, her mind, and her space. Peace is not passive. It's a battle, and she's learned how to fight for it. She doesn't let every comment get to her. She doesn't chase every misunderstanding. She doesn't argue to prove her point, because she's not trying to win battles that don't matter. She's trying to build a life that does. She's not going to waste her breath trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She's not explaining herself to people who don't even know the full story. She's learned that silence is a defense. Stillness is a weapon. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your peace still intact. There were seasons when she didn't know how to protect her peace. Seasons when she stayed too long in toxic places, gave too much of herself to people who weren't giving anything back, got pulled into arguments that left her drained and disappointed. But those seasons taught her. They trained her. And now she knows what it feels like to have peace. And she's not going back. She'd rather lose people than lose herself. She'd rather be misunderstood than be manipulated. She'd rather be alone than surrounded by chaos. Her peace is her compass now. It helps her make decisions. If something feels off, she doesn't ignore it. If the atmosphere shifts, she pays attention. If a relationship starts to steal her joy, she steps back and reassesses. She doesn't wait until everything breaks to make a move. She listens early. She discerns quickly, because she knows peace doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you're not careful, you'll drown it out with noise that has no place in your life. People might think she's distant or too private, but what they don't understand is that peace sometimes looks like solitude. It looks like boundaries. It looks like not responding. It looks like turning the phone off. It looks like protecting your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. She's not isolating because she's bitter. She's cultivating an atmosphere where God can speak, where her soul can rest, where her mind can breathe. That's not selfish. That's sacred. She's not easily triggered anymore, not because she's perfect, but because she's intentional. She chooses her responses. She chooses her focus. She chooses what she will and won't give energy to. And that's not always easy. Sometimes she wants to clap back. Sometimes she wants to defend herself. But then she remembers, my peace is more valuable than this moment. My growth is bigger than this reaction. That pause, that maturity is what keeps her centered. She's also mindful of what she consumes. She doesn't just guard her space. She guards her intake. She watches what she listens to, what she watches, what she reads. Because she knows peace is not just about what's around her. It's also about what's within her. She doesn't entertain gossip. She doesn't marinate in negativity. She doesn't speak defeat over her life. Her words build peace. Her thoughts invite peace. Her atmosphere carries peace. It's intentional. It's cultivated. And it's non-negotiable. She doesn't need external cause to confirm her strength. She doesn't need to be in a battle to feel brave. Her power is in her stillness. Her strength is in her softness. Her courage is in her calm. Because the woman who can protect her peace in the middle of pressure is the woman who's truly unstoppable. The one who knows how to be unshaken when everything is shaking. The one who can rest when others are running. That's where the real growth is. She's come to understand that peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of God. It's not found in everything going right. It's found in knowing who you are, whose you are, and what you carry. So no, she doesn't go everywhere she's invited. She doesn't respond to everything sent her way. She doesn't get pulled into every fire, because some fires aren't hers to put out. Some battles aren't hers to fight. And some storms are sent just to see if she'll leave her post. But she's planted, she's rooted, she's covered, and above all, she's protected, because she protects her peace. She doesn't settle for potential, she waits for alignment. That's the difference between a woman who's desperate for company and a woman who knows her calling. Potential can look good on paper. It can sound good in conversation. It can be charming, exciting, and even promising, but she's not moved by surface anymore. She's learned that potential without purpose is just a distraction in disguise. She doesn't fall in love with what someone could become. She looks at who they are now and asks, does this align with the life I'm building? Does this support the woman I'm becoming? Because anything that threatens her alignment threatens her assignment. She used to be drawn to potential. She used to hold on to relationships, friendships, even opportunities that looked like they might evolve one day. She'd pour her time, her energy, her heart into something that wasn't ready to grow with her. But she learned the hard way that just because something has promise doesn't mean it has purpose. She realized that hope alone can't build a future. You need partnership. You need shared values. You need vision that connects, not just chemistry that excites. And when that clicked for her, something shifted. She stopped asking, can this become something? And started asking, is this already showing me who it's meant to be? That kind of clarity changes everything. It teaches you to stop forcing connections that aren't mutual. It teaches you to stop dragging people into places they were never designed to go. She no longer tries to rewrite someone else's journey to fit into her own. If they're not walking in the same direction, she blesses them and keeps moving. If their character doesn't match their words, she doesn't stick around waiting for them to change. She knows her presence is not a rehab center. Her love is not a project. She's not trying to fix someone into her future. She's waiting for someone who's already fit to walk with her there. It takes strength to walk away from potential. It takes maturity to let go of someone who means well but doesn't live well. Because it's not always bad people that distract you. It's misaligned people. People who aren't necessarily wrong, but they're not right for you. People who might be on a journey, but their pace and direction are different from yours. She's learned that alignment doesn't mean agreement on everything. It means connection on the things that matter most. And when there's no alignment, there's no foundation, she's willing to be misunderstood for choosing alignment over attachment. She'd rather be alone and at peace than surrounded and confused. She'd rather wait for what's right than settle for what's available. She understands that anything that pulls her out of alignment with her purpose, her values, her peace, it's not worth the price. She's not bitter, she's better. She's not picky, she's purposeful. Because what she's building requires intentionality. What she's becoming can't be compromised. And who she's called to be won't allow her to settle for anything less than God's best. She's not impressed by titles or status or social media highlights. She's looking deeper. She's asking questions like, can we pray together? Can we grow together? Can we weather storms together? She's not trying to build a picture-perfect life. She's trying to build a purpose-driven one. One where peace is constant. One where vision is shared. One where her strength isn't taken for granted and her standards aren't seen as too much. Because the right alignment will never ask you to lower what God raised in you. She doesn't rush into things anymore. She observes, she listens, she prays, she watches how someone handles pressure, how they treat people they don't need, how they respond to boundaries. Because attraction might get your attention, but character is what keeps your peace. And she's learned that protecting her heart isn't about being guarded. It's about being guided. She's letting God lead this time, not her emotions, not her loneliness, her imagination, but God. She used to think that waiting meant missing out, but now she knows waiting is preparation. Waiting is protection. Waiting is God saying, I'm aligning something better than what you're trying to settle for. And in that waiting, she's discovering more of herself. She's discovering the strength to say no without apology. She's discovering the courage to walk away from almost and hold out for aligned. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like nothing's happening. But deep down she knows alignment is worth the wait. There's a certain glow that comes from being in alignment. a peace that can't be faked, a joy that doesn't depend on someone else's consistency. She's grounded now, rooted, clear, and when alignment shows up, she'll know. It won't feel like confusion. It won't come with chaos. It will bring confirmation, because the right people won't challenge your standards. They'll cherish them. They won't pull you out of purpose. They'll push you deeper into it. That's the fruit of alignment. That's what she's waiting for. And until that arrives, she's not folding, she's not forcing. She's standing. Because the woman who refuses to settle is the woman who's preparing for something far greater than potential. She's preparing for promise.